Have you ever wondered what happens when secrets from the past collide with a new life? In this gripping story, Ly Tu Diem's ex-husband unexpectedly discovers a baby boy with Diem and her husband Toan, and suspects it might be his own child. Determined to uncover the truth, he secretly tests the baby's DNA, only to face crushing disappointment. What happens when hope turns to heartbreak? Stay tuned to find out. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss a moment of these heartfelt dramas unfolding. It was a quiet afternoon in the countryside, and the golden sun cast a gentle glow over the small community park near the edge of Ly Tu Diem and Toan's peaceful farm. Birds chirped softly in the trees, and the scent of freshly cut grass drifted lazily through the air. On a weathered wooden bench, Ly Tu Diem sat with a serene smile on her face, gently rocking a baby boy wrapped in a soft blue blanket. Toan, her husband, knelt in front of them, making silly faces and softly humming a lullaby to coax the baby into a nap. The child's tiny fingers reached out and clutched Toan's shirt, while Diem lovingly brushed a strand of hair from her forehead, her eyes filled with contentment and quiet pride. From across the walkway, hidden partially behind a tall row of hedges, a man stood frozen in disbelief. It was her ex-husband. He hadn't seen Diem in years. After their bitter separation, he had walked out of her life completely, assuming she would eventually forget him. He had never expected to see her again, certainly not like this. She looked different now. Stronger. Happier. But what caught his attention the most wasn't the glow on her face, or the tenderness in her gestures. It was the baby. The man's heart pounded in his chest. The baby couldn't have been more than a few months old. And there was something eerily familiar in that tiny face. The wide, deep eyes. The small, furrowed brow when he yawned. Even the way the baby grasped Diem's hand reminded him of himself. A surge of emotion welled up in him, confusion, longing, regret. Could it be? That's my son. The thought crept in slowly, then hit him like a thunderclap. Diem never told me. She kept the pregnancy a secret? The idea consumed him instantly. What if Diem had gotten pregnant just before they separated? What if she had decided to raise the child without ever telling him? And now she was with another man, this Toan, pretending as if the child was theirs? The man clenched his fists unconsciously, a rush of jealousy and sorrow filling his chest. He knew it was his fault they had separated. He had made mistakes, unforgivable ones. But if that child was truly his, it changed everything. It meant he still had a connection to Diem. A reason to be part of her life again. A reason for her to forgive him. From his hidden vantage point, he continued to watch. Toan picked the baby up and cradled him on his shoulder. Diem stood up and gently adjusted the baby's hat. The picture of a loving family. To the world, they looked perfect. But the man's mind refused to accept it. He needed to know the truth. He needed proof. That child might be the last thread that could tie Diem back to him. The last chance to right his wrongs. Unaware of the eyes watching them, Diem and Toan began to walk back toward their farm, the baby now asleep in Toan's arms. They looked peaceful, like a family that had left all wounds behind. But behind the bushes, a storm had been awakened, one that could soon threaten the very peace they had worked so hard to build. For days after that unexpected encounter, Diem's ex-husband couldn't get the image of the baby out of his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those small, familiar features, the deep eyes that seemed to mirror his own. Doubt and desperation twisted inside him like a knot. He needed answers, real answers. If the child was his, he deserved to know. And more than that, he wanted to believe there was still a way back into Diem's life. So he devised a plan. Under the guise of coincidence, he began showing up near the community again, at the market, near the local cafe, even outside the veterinary clinic where he knew Diem sometimes brought rescued animals. One afternoon, he finally made his move. He spotted Diem at a produce stand and approached her with a hesitant smile. "Diem," he said softly, pretending surprise, "I didn't expect to see you here." She froze for a brief second, then offered a polite, cautious smile. "It's been a long time," she replied, her tone neutral but not unkind. He glanced down at the stroller beside her. The baby was napping peacefully, his tiny hands curled near his chin. "He's beautiful," the man said, lowering his voice. "Is he yours?" Diem nodded, but her eyes narrowed slightly. "Yes. Toan and I adopted him," she lied smoothly, instinctively sensing the questions behind her ex-husband's gaze. The man smiled, but inside, suspicion flared hotter. Adopted? That was too convenient. He knew her well enough to tell when she was hiding something. And he was convinced she was hiding the truth now. Over the next few weeks, he found subtle ways to stay close. He befriended neighbors, offered to help with repairs around town, and gradually eased himself into Toan and Diem's orbit. Toan, always respectful but slightly wary, accepted the help. Diem, on the other hand, remained distant. She didn't trust easily, especially not him. Then came the opportunity he'd been waiting for. Toan and Diem brought the baby to a nearby clinic for a routine checkup. The man, having shadowed their schedule, had already arranged to be nearby. Inside the waiting room, he casually approached them, claiming he had an appointment too. When the nurse stepped away, and Diem went to fill out paperwork, the man leaned over to admire the baby, just for a moment. And in that moment, with a swift, practiced motion, he plucked a single hair from the baby's blanket and tucked it inside a plastic bag hidden in his jacket pocket. It was done. Later that day, he sent the sample to a private DNA testing service under a false name. The wait nearly broke him. He paced the floors of his small apartment, checking his phone every hour, going over every detail of the baby's face in his mind. He had convinced himself of the answer. He had to be the father. It was the only explanation that made sense. He told himself that once the results confirmed it, he'd have something real to bring to Diem. A reason for her to talk to him. Maybe even forgive him. Maybe, just maybe, she'd let him be part of her life again. And maybe, with the child between them, they could rebuild what they'd lost. The baby, to him, wasn't just a child anymore. He was the last fragile thread connecting him to a past he had thrown away, and to a future he desperately wanted back. The envelope arrived on a Thursday morning. Plain, unmarked, and coldly impersonal. He stared at it for a long time, as if opening it might somehow change what was already inside. His hands trembled slightly as he tore the flap, pulling out the crisp sheet of paper. At first, his eyes skimmed the lines in a blur, his breath catching in his chest. Then, one sentence struck like a lightning bolt. Probability of paternity, 0%. The words stared back at him with cruel finality. The baby wasn't his. Not even close. The strand of hope he had clung to, nurtured and fed with every glance at that child's face, had just shattered into silence. He let the paper fall to the floor, sat down heavily on the edge of his bed, and buried his face in his hands. For a long time, he didn't move. All the images he had built in his head, the chance to be a father, to reconnect with Diem, to earn a second chance at the life he had once taken for granted, disappeared in an instant. The baby had become a symbol of redemption in his mind. Now, even that had slipped away. It wasn't just about the child anymore. It was what he had hoped the child could bring him: forgiveness, connection, love. And now, with the truth glaring back at him, he was forced to accept a reality he had refused to see. Diem had moved on. Not in bitterness or haste, but in strength and grace. She had built a new life, chosen a partner who loved her deeply, and opened her heart to a child that may not have come from her body, but was still her son in every way that mattered. He was the only one still standing in the past. The next time he saw them was purely by chance. Diem was walking hand in hand with Toan along the market square. The baby, their baby, rested in a carrier strapped to Toan's chest, sleeping soundly. They looked happy. Real. Whole. There was no room for him in that picture. Not anymore. He almost turned away, but something stopped him. He approached slowly, cautiously, keeping his emotions buried deep. "Hi," he said simply. Diem looked at him for a moment, searching, perhaps, for anger or confrontation, but found only quiet acceptance in his eyes. She nodded in greeting. "I just wanted to say," he paused, trying to steady his voice. "He's lucky. That boy. To have you both." Toan nodded in acknowledgement, while Diem's gaze softened, still guarded but no longer cold. There was nothing more to say. No dramatic goodbye. No plea for another chance. Just a man finally understanding that sometimes, letting go is the only way to make peace with what's lost. He walked away with his hands in his pockets and his shoulders a little heavier. There was no sun. No path back. But maybe, just maybe, there was a lesson learned in the quiet heartbreak, that love isn't always a second chance, it's sometimes the grace to step aside and let others be happy. Behind him, Diem leaned into Toan's shoulder, the baby stirring gently between them. They didn't look back. And neither did he.